You look like a bicyclist.
Well, not really.
Have you been doing it for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, I ride. I don't ride like long distances, but you know, it's about an hour and a half or something.
My only memory of riding bicycles when I was like on the neighborhood at 8 years old, and I had a great time. But as I grew older, I just got increasingly lazier, I think.
Well, it's important to keep exercising.
Oh, yeah. Well, my first question in regards to your movie is, can you recall the defining moment that you had the inspiration to film Outrageous?
I actually, Outrage. Yes.
It is an outrageously outrageous movie.
It's true. We wanted to make a musical out of this and call it Outrageous. But I think it would make a good musical. But in any case, yeah, no, I do remember the defining moment. I was in Washington, D.C. It was August of 2006. It's before the whole Mark Foley scandal, before Larry Craig was arrested in the bathroom. And I was there promoting This Film Is Not Yet Rated, which is about the censorship of the American film rating system. And I knew about that censorship because I was in the film business. So I thought, here I am in Washington, D.C. Let me just start asking around and seeing if I can get some stories that people, you know, pretty much only know about within the Beltway. And, you know, very quickly somebody came up to me and said, you know, I think Karl Rove is gay. And I thought, wow, that's a good film. And so I started asking around and never did find out any information to support, you know, that rumor that he was gay. But I did very quickly get into the story, you know, the hypocrisy, the fact that there were so many closeted politicians. And so I was actually working on another film. I hadn't started, but I was in development on another film, and I just put that aside and just dove right into this.
Boy, what is your opinion? Do you think that Karl Rove is gay?
I don't. No, do I think he's gay? I don't because I don't have any information that he is. So,
right.
I mean, it'd be wonderful.
Now,
it's a great fantasy, but
now Barney Frank apparently has come out, or has been out for a long time.
Oh, he's been out for a long time. Yes, yeah. He you know, he has an interesting story. He was closeted for a while. You know, he was elected in the 1980s, I believe, and he was closeted for about 10 years, I think. And then he did come out in an interview to the Boston Globe, and then a couple of years later he got caught up in a sort of a mini scandal because he was renting out a room to a male prostitute, and you know, he claimed he didn't know that it was you know, what his renter was doing. Well, I mean, I'd be a little surprised about that, but you know, it was a mini. But what happened as a result of that was that's when he was sort of kind of outed in the national media. That's when everybody sort of started talking about him as gay, and he you know, to his credit, he'd already come out. He wasn't really outed. So, and then of course he's been a huge supporter of gay rights and human rights, you know, for a long time now.
What individuals did you try to get included in your film that were not mentioned?
Well, there are a number of, you know, there was several senators we looked into, a number of representatives, some people in the administration, in the Bush administration, but we could, and in certain cases, I believe they are gay, and they're voting anti-gay, so you know, it would be legitimate for me to report on in this film, but I couldn't get enough corroborating information to put in the film, and so.
What type of opposition have you encountered, if any?
Well, I think the most difficult kind of aspect of making this film was that people wanted to give me information, and they were afraid to. You know, I'd get to them on the phone, and they'd say, "Look, this sounds like a great film. I want to support it. I have some information for you. Call me back." I'd call them back, and they'd say, "Look, I've thought about it, and I don't think I don't feel comfortable talking." And what they were saying is, it wasn't because of me. What they were saying is they were afraid of repercussions, and so that happened numerous times, and that was difficult. Nothing so far in terms of, you know, actually people threats or anything like that. I mean, there's one moment when I was looking into one case in a sort of a rural house district, and it got a little creepy when I was dealing with some of the people I was talking to. But
to what degree do you believe that Christianity has to do with the cultural divide that is preventing a lot of people to accept same-sex marriage and just the gay culture as a whole?
Well, I don't think it's Christianity per se. I mean, I think it's fundamentalist, part of the Christian religion. Mm-hmm. That is. I mean, there's many aspects of the Christian religion that are actually very welcoming of gays and lesbians. Mm-hmm. I know my mother, who's a Methodist, her church is a reconciling church, and she's been, the whole church has been campaigning for decades to prevent the conservative aspect of the Methodist Church from trying to, prevent gays and lesbians, for example, from becoming ordained. And to some degree, that's been a losing battle for them. But that seems to be changing a little bit. But yes, no, fundamentalism, no question, has been an influence in the sort of anti-gay rights sort of direction that this country's gone over the last 20 years. But I think, as bad as that is, I think more blame even has to go on the Republican Party, because the Republican Party made the choice to align with this and to use this as a wedge issue, because they didn't have to do that, and that's a very cynical choice, because these politicians high up in the Republican Party are not homophobic. I mean, a few of them are. Most of them are not. Most of them have staff who are gay, and most of them know that their staff is gay. George Bush has personal friends who are gay. Then they made a very cynical decision to come out and use this as a wedge issue in order to keep and maintain power. And so that's where the primary blame really has to go.
If you had a choice on how many years it's going to take before same-sex marriage is going to be allowed within the United States, what number would that be?
There's a case that's starting to, I think it's going to be taken, I don't know if it's going to be taken directly to the Supreme Court. I guess one can't, but the objective is to get it to the Supreme Court. That's being argued by Ted Olson, who's an attorney who works very closely with the Republican Party, and actually, his counterpart actually in the whole 2000 election, in the battle over Florida, there were two attorneys fighting on each side, a Democrat and a Republican, when it went to the Supreme Court. Ted Olson was representing the Republican side, and I forgot the name of the attorneys representing the Democrats, but they have gotten together and want to take a particular case to the Supreme Court and have the Supreme Court rule that this is, these restrictions on gays and lesbians marrying is unconstitutional. Now, and it's interesting. It's an interesting case, because there's a lot of the mainstream gay rights organizations were reluctant to jump on in support of this, because they were afraid it might set precedent if the Supreme Court rules against them. But so that it could happen soon, and then if that doesn't happen, it could. I mean, nationally, it could be decades.
Well, I have to congratulate you for your film Outrage, because it's definitely going to chip away at that very rigid block that we have in our country. And hopefully it's going to just melt it away, and it's going to be projects like yours that's going to eventually make people a little bit more sane in this country.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's it's a long struggle, from a lot of people. So I hope that this is just, a small part of that.
Thank you so much, Kirby.
Thank you.
And bestie on your next project that you cannot tell anybody about.
Yeah.